stage our last speaker of the day, Daniel Schwing, Head of Client Sales at STRÖER.
Hello, everyone, and I'm very glad to be here today. And thank you, Shift Mobility, for this opportunity. I would like to take you on a little journey today, a journey of communication, its mechanism of action, and what I think needs to be considered in an increasingly digitalized world in urban living spaces. Why? Some may ask. Haven't we heard enough about alternative drives, new technologies, and the paradigm shift of mobility? Indeed, we heard a lot of valuable impulses today. But one aspect has come up too short for me. The consumer. How to reach him and take him along. Because the consumer does not only stand at the end of a long research, development, and implementation process, but also decides with his purchase decision about the success of the business case. So it's a bit educating at the afternoon without diving too deep into these studies. The results show us clearly that the ability of human thinking, the white curve, reaches its limits due to a dynamic development of trends, the orange one. And at the intersection of these two curves, a demand pool can arise that inspires or maybe intends the desire for these trends. But what does that mean for communication? Milestones are still anchored in a long-term strategy, of course. And in my estimation, that is important and correct. That makes mission statements and visions all the more crucial, which, as a tactical measure, should always have the courage to try out new communication channels. Because new things are created by new things, starting in the mindset of the target groups. And in this context, we should also talk about values. Value concepts are shifting. At the beginning of the transformation, the smartphone was giving priority to the new car ownership. At another stage, ownership is questioned in the context of mobility, because mobility as a service has arrived at the market. And currently, we observe an on-demand culture. That means everything is everywhere and always available, exactly when I want it. Is this certainly a trend? Or is it not rather the consequence of the demand pool that has just been pointed out? There should be agreement, however, that a changed mindset is influencing the action. And this is happening right now. But why do we know that? What enables us as STRÖER to make this statement? Because we positioned ourselves along the customer journey several years ago. My team and I talked to both the automotive sector, OEMs, suppliers, new mobility providers, and the consumer electronics industry. And parallels of the consumer behavior in both industries are evident. And technological advancements additionally driving a progressive merging of both industries. In our discussions, there's a large consensus that the mindset along the customer journey is changing. That was a lot of input. So let's briefly summarize. Target groups are getting more diverse. Rigid patterns are given way to a high degree of flexibility that provides the basis for an on-demand culture. So when addressing target groups, it is advantageous to select the right one at the right time, at the right place, with the right message. And the digitization of the street and urban spaces precisely offers us this opportunity with maximum scalable flexibility. At this point, I would like to recommend Philipp Westermeyer's speech on this year's online media Rockstar on the state of the German internet. You can easily find it on YouTube, and I would briefly summarize the core issue on it. It is about hacking the feed. And what does he mean is, it is very difficult to get in the timelines of social media actually and right now. But there's a clue to do so. Imagine, make a stunt on the street, use out of home, use big screens, use or do something people talk about. They make photos of it, they make videos of it, and they share it in your timeline. That's about hacking the feed. And why do I talk about online right now? Because what I just said does not only apply for out of home and digital out of home, but is also be found online. In the past, it was much easier to address your target groups. You had a fairly clear view of users and data. Today, it's totally different. It's getting more and more difficult, especially due to GDPR and cookie death. So for both sectors, it is like fishing in your own pond, since you always reach the same people or the same group of people. But what is with the big rest out there? How do brands, regardless of whether they were new players or established, manage to win over new customers, or even arise a certain interest in them in the first place? It needs fresh water from above to fill the so-called upper funnel. And what do we mean with upper funnel? We mean brand building. There's no question about it. Performance is a safe bet on paper. Media use is directly rewarded and increases your sales and your business success. But sales go down just as quickly you're lowering your performance level, unless you can profit from your brand or your brand building. So brand building ensures your long-term growth in sales. How do brands succeed in the upper funnel? How do they get in our minds? The answer is with pictures. I bet all of you know which brand this wave belongs to. Or this colored cow, or maybe also this yellow triangle. But let's be honest, why is that? Only 1 to 2% of our brain thinks in linear logical categories. The remaining 98% thinks in a total different way. Think about images, sounds, emotions, and other sensory perceptions. So, what effect can images have on us? We perceive about 80% of our information through our eyes. So images play a very special role there. They can arouse emotions, they inspire or intense everything around us. And this is exactly what communication can achieve with the help of digitalization. a storage of information which creates an emotional meaning for us individually. A bold thesis? Let's make a little vote at the end. Who of you are remembering a phone number from your childhood a long, long time ago? And what I mean, who is able to dial the number in your smartphone without clicking on the contact? Please raise your hand. So, for everybody else, nearly everybody. And why is that? To be honest, there are several reasons for it. But let's focus on the obvious two. You dial this number over and over and over again. And secondly, mostly in combination, the person on the other side had an emotional meaning for you, no matter what it is. In my case, it was a pizza delivery service. I was small rich, but that's another story. So, what we have learned in the last 10 minutes, the customer is very important. Put the customer in focus. He decides of the success of your business case. Number two, use data to identify your target group and address them with the help of data. And third, take quick wins on performance, but don't forget to use brand building on the long term, because this ensures your long-term sales and your long-term business success. Thank you.
Daniel, thank you very much for sharing these insights with us. I am lucky my parents have the same phone number for 30 years, and that's pretty much the only number I remember, and I will for the rest of my life. At the very end and also in between, you talked about the difference between performance and brand building, and I think you also explained it a bit. We have to separate into short-term and long-term importance. But just in the short term for now, is there one thing more important than the others, or should we always focus on both?
You should, and this is a clear advice, you should always focus on both. And I'm sure that the budget is limited. Of course, nobody has the money to spend everything. And it's totally okay to get quick wins from the short-term performance leveraging to reinvest it on the long term. But it is important for managers or entrepreneurs to think about, where do I want to stand in 5 or 10 or something years? And you need a long-term strategy. And in combination with a strategy, the brand building, and what do I want to tell about my product or about my solution, has to arrive at the customer.
I think it's not only important for companies, as well for ourselves to have a clear vision here. So the whole day we talked about how the industry is changing, the whole automotive industry is changing. So for me, the next step, of course, is that communication in that field has to change as well. How could that communication look like?
So we changed the digitalization on the street, as you see. As you see more and more digital screens on the train station, on the airports, or even on the streets as well. And this is exactly what customers, or not customers, what companies can use for. They can address the target group directly, that's what I said, at the right time, at the right place. And this is also very difficult to explain because, yes, you can address them directly in a short term, but you also need the reach for your brand building, let's just say all day long. Huh?
Absolutely. Perfect. So I can see we have 4 minutes left. So are there any questions from you guys? Talking about communication. No question in here. Everybody can smell the food already, right? I can see. So Daniel, thank you very much. It was such a pleasure to have you here. Thanks a lot.